Say a poor girl sells her music box to a young billionaire to save her sick mother. But when he opens it and sees the photo inside, he begins to cry uncontrollably. The snow fell slowly outside the window when Emma woke up. 5 years old, and with responsibilities bigger than many adults, she slipped out of bed without a sound. The tiny apartment was much too quiet. She knew what that meant. Her mother hadn't slept well again. "Mom," Emma whispered, poking her head into Sarah's bedroom. Sarah lay there, paler than the cheap sheets. She opened her eyes slowly and forced a smile. "Good morning, my love," she said in a weak voice. "Did you sleep well?" Emma nodded, even though it wasn't true. The nightmares had returned, the ones where she was alone in the world. She climbed onto the bed and snuggled beside her mother, feeling the faint warmth that came from her. "I'm going to make your medicine," Emma said, brushing a strand of hair away from her mother's face. "You don't have to, sweetheart. Rest a little longer." But Emma was already on her feet. She knew the routine better than her own breathing. Warm water, white and pink pills, light meals Sarah rarely managed to eat. The money would run out in 3 days. The medicine in 2. While she prepared breakfast, Emma glanced at the small music box on the living room shelf. It was the most beautiful thing they owned. Hand-carved wood, delicate golden details, and a ballerina who danced when opened. Sarah said it belonged to a man she loved very much before Emma was born. A man who never knew he had a daughter. "It's the only thing I have left of him," Sarah used to say, her eyes distant. She never said more than that. That morning, while her mother slept after taking her medication, Emma made a decision. She carefully took the music box and wrapped it in the only pretty scarf they had. She placed it inside her backpack and left quietly. The city, busy and intimidating, was huge and scary for such a small girl, but Emma had learned not to show fear. She walked 6 blocks until she reached the street lined with stores. She'd been there before, staring at the displays with her mother, back when the illness wasn't so advanced. She knew exactly where to go. The sign reading "Antiques and Curiosities" was a bit faded. The bell above the door chimed when Emma went in. The place smelled of old books and polished wood. "May I help you?" asked an older man with white hair from behind the counter. Emma swallowed hard. I want to sell this." She took the box out of her backpack, carefully unwrapping the scarf. The music box gleamed under the store's lights, as if it had a life of its own. The man adjusted his glasses. "An interesting piece, but I don't buy things from children." "Where are your parents?" "My mom is sick," Emma answered, with the dignity that only children forced to grow up too fast can have. "We need money for medicine." The man hesitated. At that exact moment, the bell on the door rang again. Ryan Carter rarely entered antique shops. In fact, at 35 and with an impressive fortune built in the tech industry, he hardly stepped into any store at all. He had people to do that for him. But something about that window caught his eye as he passed by. Or maybe he was just bored with yet another purposeless day. "Mr. Carter," the owner nearly dropped his glasses in surprise. "What an honor to have you here." Ryan nodded, uninterested in the flattery. His eyes were drawn to the glow of the music box in Emma's small hands. "Is that for sale?" he asked, pointing to the object. Emma looked up at the tall man in his expensive suit. There was something in his eyes, a loneliness she recognized even if she couldn't name it. "Yes," she answered. "It's a special music box." Ryan didn't know why it intrigued him so much. Maybe it was the determination on the child's face or some detail on the box that seemed familiar. He moved closer and knelt down to Emma's height. "May I see it?" Emma hesitated for a second, then handed over the box. Ryan opened it carefully. A delicate melody filled the shop as the ballerina began to spin. A strange sensation washed over him, like an echo of something lost long ago. "How much do you want for it?" Ryan asked, still staring at the box. $300, Emma replied without hesitation, the exact amount her mother needed for the next month's medication. The store owner coughed. "The girl doesn't know what she's talking about, Mr. Carter. Let me assess it properly for you and—" "500, Ryan interrupted, looking directly at Emma. "It's worth $500. Emma's eyes widened. It was more money than she had ever seen in her life. "But there's a condition," Ryan continued. "You have to tell me the story of this box." Emma's face grew serious. "It was my mum's. A man she loved very much gave it to her before I was born. It's the only thing we have left of him. Mom says he doesn't know I exist." Ryan felt something stir in his chest, a premonition, an inexplicable connection. "Your mother? What's her name?" "Sarah," Emma replied. Sarah Miller. The name meant nothing to Ryan, but still, he felt a chill. He took out his wallet and counted out the money, handing it to Emma. "Thank you, sir," she said, carefully holding the bills. Her eyes lingered on the music box one last time. "Please take good care of it." "I will," Ryan promised. "What's your name?" "Emma." "Emma Miller. Where do you live, Emma?" Emma hesitated, remembering what her mother had taught her. Never give strangers your information. But something about this man felt safe. "At the Westbrook building, apartment 512, she finally replied. Ryan nodded, memorizing the address without knowing exactly why. As Emma left the shop, he stood there looking at the music box in his hands, feeling a weight heavier than the object itself suggested. What Ryan Carter didn't know, as he watched little Emma disappear into the busy street, was that he had just bought far more than a simple antique. That music box held secrets that would connect their destinies in ways he could never imagine. And he was about to discover that in the most unexpected way possible. Ryan left the antique shop with the music box in hand, still intrigued by the impulse that made him purchase it. It wasn't like him to act without thinking, without calculating, without a plan. His driver waited discreetly at the corner, as always. "Home, sir?" Ryan nodded, distracted, as he turned the music box between his fingers. The driver cast a curious glance in the rearview mirror but said nothing. He was used to his employer's eccentricities. The Carter mansion was a monument to success and loneliness. Large windows, open spaces, and an impersonal decor that looked like it came straight out of an architecture magazine. Ryan rarely noticed it, but today, the emptiness of the place felt overwhelming. "Cancel my afternoon appointments," he instructed his assistant on the phone as soon as he entered. He didn't wait for an answer before hanging up. In the silence of his office, Ryan placed the box on his desk and stared at it for a few minutes. What was it about this simple object that intrigued him so much? Why had he paid $500 for something probably worth far less? And why couldn't he stop thinking about little Emma and her sick mother? Carefully, he opened the lid. The gentle melody filled the room as the ballerina spun gracefully. It was a tune that felt familiar, though he couldn't place where he'd heard it before. Ryan turned the box in his hands, inspecting it more closely. That's when he noticed a slight irregularity in the wooden base. He pressed it lightly, and part of the bottom came loose, a secret compartment. Inside, folded neatly, there was a photograph. Ryan removed it carefully. It was an old picture, about 25 years old, judging by the quality and the clothes. A young couple smiled at the camera, embracing in front of a lake. The woman was beautiful, with long hair and a radiant smile. And the man? Ryan's heart skipped a beat as tears began to fall. Dad? There was no doubt. The young man in the photo was Richard Carter, his father, some 30 years younger, but unmistakable. The same strong jaw, the same eyes, even the same way of smiling. But Ryan had never seen this woman before. And never, in his entire life, had he seen his father look at anyone like that. Not even his mother. Ryan froze for a moment, trying to understand what it meant. The music box Emma had sold belonged to Sarah, her mother. Sarah, who kept a photo of Ryan's father as a treasure. Sarah, who had a small daughter with an unknown father. It can't be, he murmured to himself. But the pieces fit together in a disturbing way. Richard Carter, now 65 Astes, was a respected businessman, widowed for 5 years. He had built an empire with relentless determination, a trait Ryan both admired and feared. He never spoke of his past before meeting Ryan's mother. Without a second thought, Ryan grabbed his car keys. He needed answers, and there was only one person who could provide them. Richard Carter lived in an even larger mansion on the outskirts of the city. When Ryan arrived unannounced, the butler seemed surprised, but led him to the library, where his father usually spent his afternoons. "Ryan?" Richard looked up from his book, surprised. "Is something wrong?" Ryan didn't reply immediately. He studied the man before him, powerful, confident, always in control. Was he about to shake that control to its core? "I found something today," he finally said, his voice calmer than he expected. "Something I think you should see." Slowly, Ryan placed the music box on the mahogany table. Richard looked at it with a neutral expression, showing no recognition. But when Ryan opened the lid and the melody began to play, Ryan saw something change in his father's eyes, a flicker of emotion quickly suppressed. "It's a pretty piece," Richard commented, his voice pointedly casual. "Where'd you find it?" "A girl sold it today at an antique shop. She said it belonged to her mother." Ryan paused, observing his father's reaction. Then, without another word, he held out the photograph. The effect was immediate. The color drained from Richard's face. His always steady hand trembled visibly as he took the photo. For a moment, he seemed to age 10 years right then and there, in front of Ryan's eyes. "I thought I'd never see this again," Richard murmured, so softly that Ryan almost didn't hear. Silence fell between them like lead. Ryan waited, giving his father time to find his words. "Who is she?" Ryan asked at last, when the silence became unbearable. Richard took a deep breath. His eyes never left the photo. "Catherine," he replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "Catherine Miller." Ryan felt a chill. Miller, the same last name as Emma and Sarah. She was... Richard hesitated, as though the words were painful. "She was the love of my life." The confession, so simple yet so devastating, caught Ryan off guard. In all his life, he had never heard his father speak like that. "But I thought you and Mom... I loved your mother, Ryan. Truly." "But Catherine..." Richard shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. After another long silence, he continued, "I met her first. We were too young, too in love. My father, your grandfather, didn't approve. He said she wasn't on our level, that she would ruin my future." Ryan swallowed. "So you left her?" It wasn't a question, but Richard nodded anyway. "I had no choice. My father threatened to disinherit me if we stayed together. He said he'd destroy her, use all his connections to ensure she never had a job or peace of mind." Richard's voice trembled. "I was too weak to fight him then. I had no means to support her. So I walked away, thinking it was best for her. You never tried to find her again, when you had your own money." "I did. Years later, when I finally had the courage, but she was gone. No one could tell me where she went." Richard looked at the photo again. "Eventually, I met your mother and moved on. Or tried to." Ryan watched his father, always so strong, so unshakable, reduced to a man broken by past choices. But there was still one question he needed to ask. "The girl who sold me this box is named Emma Miller. She's 5. Her mother's name is Sarah." Ryan paused. "Sarah Miller." Richard's face went rigid, his eyes widening in realization. "Catherine had a daughter," he whispered. "Was she pregnant when I left?" "No," Ryan replied, feeling the weight of the moment. "But if Sarah is Catherine's daughter, and you never knew she existed..." The implication hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Richard brought a hand to his mouth, shock evident in every line of his face. "I have a daughter. And a granddaughter." Ryan nodded slowly. "If this is true, yes." "Little Emma said Sarah's father never knew about her." Richard stood abruptly, staggering as though physically struck. He walked to the window, turning his back to Ryan, shoulders slumped. "All these years," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I lost all these years." Ryan watched him in silence, feeling a confusing mix of emotions, shock, anger over the unspoken lie, but also a strange hope. He had always been an only child, always felt the weight of solitude. The idea of having a half-sister was both terrifying and wonderful. "What do we do now?" Ryan finally asked. Richard turned around, red-eyed determination shining through. "Let's find them," he answered firmly. "Let's find our family." The Westbrook building didn't match the rest of the neighborhood. It was an old structure with peeling paint, and a dimly lit entrance. Ryan parked his luxury car out front, drawing curious stares from passers-by. His father, Richard, sitting in the passenger seat, looked just as out of place as the vehicle. "Are you sure this is it?" Richard asked, nervousness evident in his voice. Ryan nodded. "Apartment 512, that's what Emma said." The two men entered the building in silence. The elevator was out of service, under maintenance for 6 months, a neighbor informed them with an apologetic smile. They climbed the 5 flights of stairs, each step intensifying the anxiety they felt. In the hallway on the 5th floor, Richard paused. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted, running a hand through his graying hair. "What if she hates me? What if she wants nothing to do with me? We don't even know if she's really your daughter," Ryan reminded him, though all signs pointed that way. "Let's just talk. Find out the truth." They reached apartment 512. The door was worn, the blue paint peeling at the edges. Ryan took a deep breath and knocked. After a few seconds, they heard light footsteps approaching. The door opened, and there stood Emma, her eyes going wide as she recognized Ryan. "Did you come back for the music box?" she asked, confused. "I don't have the money to return to you now." "No, it's not that," Ryan said quickly. "I just wanted to talk to your mom. Is she home?" Emma hesitated, suspicious, glancing from Ryan to Richard. There was something familiar about the older man she couldn't place. "My mom's resting," she finally said. "She hasn't been feeling well." "It's important," Ryan insisted gently. "I promise we won't bother her too long." After another moment's hesitation, Emma opened the door fully. "Come in, I'll see if she's awake." The apartment was small but clean and organized. Framed photos decorated the walls, most of them showing Emma at various ages. Ryan noticed one in particular, a young woman holding a baby, smiling despite the exhaustion in her eyes. Probably Sarah, he thought. Richard seemed unable to move, taking in every detail of this environment, searching for any sign of the life he had never known. Emma returned a few minutes later. "Mom said you can come in." They followed her down a short hallway to a simple bedroom. Sarah was sitting up in bed, propped against pillows. Ryan felt a pang seeing her condition. Pale, thin, but with a quiet dignity that demanded respect. She had Emma's eyes, intelligent and cautious. "My daughter said you wanted to speak with me," Sarah began, her voice stronger than her appearance suggested. "What's this about?" Ryan stepped forward. "I'm Ryan Carter. We met indirectly yesterday when I bought a music box from your daughter." Sarah frowned, glancing at Emma. "You sold the music box, the one in the living room?" Emma bowed her head. "We needed money for your medicine, Mum." Sarah's face softened. "Oh, Emma." She turned her attention to the visitors. "Thank you for buying it. It had sentimental value, but, well, some things are more important." Ryan hesitated, then took the photograph from his pocket. "I found this hidden in the box." Seeing the image, Sarah's face went pale. She took the photo with trembling hands. "This photo, my mother never wanted to tell me much about this man. All I know is that he was her great love, but something tore them apart before I was born." Her voice faltered. "Where did you find it?" "There was a secret compartment in the base of the box," Ryan explained. Then, taking a deep breath, he gestured to the man beside him. "This is my father, Richard Carter." Sarah's eyes moved slowly from the photo to Richard. Understanding gradually dawned on her face, followed by confusion, then shock. "I don't understand," she murmured. "What does this mean?" Richard stepped forward tentatively. "The woman in that photo," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "is Catherine Miller, your mother." Sarah clutched the blanket, as if seeking something to steady herself. "How do you know my mother's name?" "Who are you?" "We knew each other a long time ago," Richard replied. "We loved each other once." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unasked questions and unspoken truths. Emma looked from one adult to another, sensing something significant was happening, but not understanding exactly what. "My mother never mentioned a Richard," Sarah said finally, her voice a bit sharper. "She only said my father was someone she loved deeply, but circumstances kept them apart before I was even born. She said he never knew I existed." Richard swallowed. It's true. I didn't know. If I had known... How long were you together? Sarah asked. 2 years. The best of my life. Richard seemed to struggle with each word. My father. My family didn't approve. They threatened us. I was young, scared, with no resources to protect her, so I left thinking it was best for her. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, tears shimmered. She never got over you, she said quietly. Even after all these years, even having moved on briefly with another man, there was a part of her that always belonged to you. Richard stepped closer to the bed, tears flowing freely now. Catherine, is she... He couldn't finish the question. She passed away 3 years ago, Sarah answered softly. Cancer, the same thing I have now. Richard staggered as though he'd been physically struck. Ryan caught him by the arm and helped him into a nearby chair. Too late, Richard murmured. Always too late. Ryan looked at Sarah, this woman who was likely his half-sister, and felt an inexplicable bond. There was something familiar about her, beyond physical resemblance. Maybe it was the same quiet determination he recognized in himself. I know this is a shock, Ryan said, addressing Sarah, for all of us. But I think there's a possibility, a strong possibility, that we're siblings. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Half-siblings, she finally corrected. Then, with a sigh, that would explain a lot of what my mother used to say. That eye had his eyes, the same stubborn streak. Emma, who had been watching everything in silence, finally spoke. Does that mean he's my grandpa? She pointed to Richard. The simple, direct question brought everyone back to the present reality. Sarah glanced at her daughter, then at Richard, unsure. If what we're thinking is true, yes, she answered carefully. But we need to be sure. A DNA test can confirm it, Ryan suggested. If you agree. Sarah nodded slowly. Then she looked again at Richard, who appeared lost in his own sorrow. My mother never blamed you, she said gently. She understood why you left. She said you were both too young to face the world together. Richard lifted his gaze, tears marking his face. I should have fought for her. For you, all these years, wasted. There's still time, Sarah said, though the statement seemed to surprise even herself. She coughed then, a dry, painful cough that made Emma rush for a glass of water. Ryan noticed the gesture, registering how grave the situation was. You mentioned you have cancer. Are you getting proper treatment? Sarah gave a faint smile after drinking the water. The best I can afford, which isn't much. Insurance covers part, but... That ends now, Richard interrupted, suddenly energized. I'll arrange for the best doctors, the best treatment. I won't lose you too. Sarah looked like she wanted to protest, but another coughing fit prevented her. Emma watched with worried eyes, far too old for her 5 years. Ryan realized there were many decisions to make, many truths to be revealed. Sarah needed to know who they really were, not just a lost father and a possible brother, but one of the wealthiest, most powerful families in the country. And he needed to decide how much to tell her about the severity of her illness. But looking at Sarah's tired face and Emma's hopeful eyes, Ryan knew that whatever the whole truth was, it could wait a little longer. For the first time in his life, he felt he had found something more important than any business deal or fortune, a real family. And he was willing to do anything not to lose them again. 3 days had passed since the first meeting between the Carters and Sarah. In that short time, life in the small apartment at the Westbrook building had changed completely. Richard Carter, still consumed by guilt and determined not to waste more time, mobilized his resources to ensure Sarah received the best possible medical care. In less than 48 hours, Sarah was transferred to Memorial Clinic, one of the city's most prestigious hospitals. The doctors, surprised by the sudden upgrade in her status, now treated her with extra attention. Emma watched it all with a mix of hope and confusion, trying to understand how her life had changed so drastically. That afternoon, Ryan arrived at the hospital carrying a small suitcase containing items Emma had requested from home. He found the girl in the waiting room, swinging her legs that didn't quite reach the floor. How's your mum today? Ryan asked, sitting down next to her. The doctors say she's stable, Emma answered, carefully pronouncing the word stable as if she'd just learned it. But she sleeps a lot. Ryan nodded, once again impressed by the child's maturity. I brought the things you asked for. Is your mum awake now? Yes. She asked about you. Emma took the suitcase, then looked at Ryan with curiosity. Are you really my mum's brother? The direct question caught him off guard. Well, we're not absolutely certain yet. The DNA test will confirm it in a few days, but yes, it seems like I am. Emma considered this for a moment. So you're my uncle? Looks like it, Ryan smiled, feeling an unexpected wave of affection for the girl. Cool, Emma concluded after studying him seriously. I've never had an uncle before. Ryan felt a lump in his throat. As someone who'd always been surrounded by people who wanted something from him, Emma's simple sincerity was disarming. Shall we go see your mum? Sarah was sitting up in her hospital bed, flipping through a magazine without really reading it. Her face lit up at the sight of Emma, but tensed slightly when she noticed Ryan. The past few days had been an emotional roller coaster, and she was still processing everything that had happened. Emma, sweetheart, could you grab a juice at the cafeteria? Mr. Wilson at the reception has a voucher for you, Sarah asked, handing her daughter a few coins. Emma looked between the two adults, clearly sensing they wanted to talk in private, but she didn't protest. I'll be back soon, Mum. When the door closed, an uncomfortable silence settled over the room. Sarah spoke first. The doctors say I'm lucky. If I had waited a few more weeks... She let the sentence trail off. I'm glad you didn't have to wait, Ryan said, sitting in the chair next to the bed. How are you feeling about everything? Not just your health, but this whole situation. Sarah took a deep breath. Honestly, I don't know. It feels like I'm living someone else's life. Yesterday I couldn't afford my medication, and today I'm in the best hospital in the city with an entire team taking care of me. She paused. And all of a sudden, I have a father and maybe a brother. About that, Ryan hesitated, sensing it was time to clarify everything. I think we need to talk. Sarah watched him closely. There was something in his expression, a tension that hadn't been there before. What is it? Ryan pulled the photograph from his pocket, the same one they'd found in the music box. From the moment I first saw this photo, something bothered me. It wasn't just recognizing my dad in it, it was something deeper. Sarah frowned, confused. What do you mean? I know that man, Ryan said, pointing to the younger image of Richard. He's my father. Yes, you already introduced us, Sarah replied, still not understanding. Richard Carter, your father. He's the one paying for all this. No, you don't understand. Ryan took a deep breath. What I mean is, if the man in the photo is the father you never knew and he's my father too, that means we're siblings, half-siblings. Sarah's face froze in shock. She grabbed the photo from Ryan's hand, examining it as though seeing it for the first time. How did I not realize this before? Why didn't I make the connection? Everything happened so fast, Ryan said. And none of us was prepared for it. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. My mother, she always kept secrets about my father. She only said he had to leave, that his family would never accept their relationship. She never mentioned names or details. My father told me everything, Ryan said gently. He loved Catherine, your mother, deeply, but my grandfather threatened him. Not just with disinheritance, but with using his power and connections to ruin Catherine's life if they stayed together. So he abandoned her, Sarah said, her voice tinged with bitterness. He thought he was protecting her, Ryan clarified, though he understood Sarah's hurt. He was young, scared, and by the time he had the courage and resources to look for her years later, Catherine had vanished. He never knew about you. Sarah was silent for a long moment, absorbing this revelation. When she spoke again, her voice trembled with emotion. My whole life, I wondered who my father was, whether he thought about me, whether he ever regretted leaving us. And now I learn he didn't even know I existed. It's a lot to process, Ryan acknowledged, and I understand if you need time, or if you want nothing to do with us. But I want you to know that even before I found out we might be siblings, I felt a connection to you and Emma. Something led me to that shop on that specific day. Something made me buy that music box. Maybe it was fate and maybe just coincidence, but I'm grateful for it." Sarah studied him for a moment. "Do you really believe that? That we're siblings?" "We'll know for sure in a few days when the DNA test comes back, but yes, I do. Look at us. We have the same face shape, the same jawline. And something else, something intangible I recognized from the start." Ryan gave a small smile. "Besides, it explains why I felt so protective of Emma. Must be my uncle instinct." That elicited a small smile from Sarah, the first genuine one Ryan had seen. But the moment was interrupted by a violent cough. Ryan rushed to help her, offering water and calling for a nurse. When it passed, Sarah was clearly exhausted. The nurse adjusted her medication and advised her to rest. "We'll finish this conversation later," Ryan said, worried. "Get some rest for now." Sarah grasped his arm as he turned to leave. "Thank you for telling me the truth." Ryan nodded and left the room, finding Emma in the hallway with her juice. "Your mom's resting now," he said gently. "How about we go to the cafeteria and get something to eat?" In the weeks that followed, everyone's lives revolved around the hospital. Richard Carter appeared daily, attempting to draw closer to Sarah through small gestures, flowers, books, stories about Catherine he had kept locked away for decades. Some days, Sarah could talk to him calmly. On others, she barely tolerated his presence. "It's not fair," she confided to Ryan during one of her chemotherapy sessions. "Part of me wants to accept all of this. A wealthy father who can solve all my problems, a brother who showed up out of nowhere. But another part resents him for not being there when you needed him," Ryan finished, holding her hand as the medication dripped through the IV. "I get it." "Did you grow up without him too?" Sarah asked, curious. Ryan shook his head. "Not in the same way. He was physically around but emotionally absent, building his empire, making sure I had everything except what really mattered, his time, his attention." "Seems like neither of us had the father we needed," Sarah observed. "Maybe he can still be the grandfather Emma needs," Ryan suggested. Sarah glanced out the hospital window, where Emma and Richard were sitting in the garden. The older man explained something about the flowers, and the little girl listened attentively. She took to him so quickly. Kids are like that. They forgive easily. They accept people as they are in the present, without the weight of the past. "What about you?" Ryan asked. "Do you think you can ever forgive him?" Sarah didn't answer immediately. "I don't know if it's about forgiveness. He didn't know I existed. What I need to decide is whether I want to build something new with him now, or if it's too late." The DNA test confirmed what they all suspected. Sarah was indeed Richard Carter's daughter, and Ryan's half-sister. Though the news was expected, it unleashed another wave of emotions for everyone. For Richard, it was final validation of his love for Catherine. For Ryan, confirmation that his family had expanded. For Sarah, a truth she was still learning to accept. But as they tried to navigate this complex emotional web, Sarah's health took a serious turn for the worse. After a series of tests, her medical team called a family meeting. "The cancer is progressing faster than we anticipated," explained Dr. Morris, the head oncologist. "Her liver is severely compromised. We'll continue the current treatment, but we need to begin considering the possibility of a transplant." Richard paled. "A liver transplant? How urgent is that?" "It's not an immediate emergency," replied the doctor. "But within 3 to 6 months, if there's no significant improvement, that will be our best option." "What are the chances of improvement with the current treatment?" Ryan asked. "We're being aggressive with chemotherapy," the doctor said. "But in these cases, it's hard to predict. We'll monitor her closely and adjust as necessary." Richard looked devastated. "Do whatever it takes, doctor. Money is no object." "I understand, Mr. Carter, but at this point, the best support you can provide is emotional. Sarah will need you all throughout this difficult treatment," the doctor replied kindly. When Sarah was informed of the severity of her condition, she tried to maintain composure, but fear was evident in her eyes. "I'll get through this," she said, mostly to herself. "For Emma, I don't have a choice." "You're not alone in this fight," Ryan assured her, taking her hand. "We're here now." "You barely know me," Sarah said. "We're blood relatives, But we're not really a family, not yet. Family is built over time through shared experiences. Then let's build it, Ryan said with determination, day by day. Richard watched the interaction between his children with a mix of hope and anxiety, torn between the joy of finding a lost daughter and the fear of losing her so soon after finding her. The situation created a strange bubble around them, a family trying to reconnect under the shadow of a serious illness, learning to navigate unfamiliar waters. "We need time," Ryan told her that evening during a visit. "Time to really get to know each other." "Why?" Sarah asked, genuinely puzzled. "Why do you care so much?" Ryan sat on the edge of the bed. "You know what else I bought when I purchased that music box? A second chance. I've spent my entire life accumulating wealth, power, success, and at the end of the day, I went home to an empty house. No real purpose, no genuine connections, until I met you and Emma." "I don't want your pity," Sarah warned. "It's not pity," Ryan replied firmly. "It's recognition. That may be what I've been looking for all along, is something money can't buy. A real family." Sarah studied her newly discovered brother's face for a long moment. She saw determination in his eyes, but also vulnerability and genuine hope. For the first time since meeting him, she looked past the successful businessman, beyond the privileged son of Richard Carter. She saw just a man yearning for connection, the same way she had always yearned. "I don't know if I can take all this in at once," she admitted. "It's a lot to process." "I understand," Ryan said. "We can take it slow." Even as they talked, both knew time wasn't on their side. Sarah's health continued to deteriorate faster than the doctors had predicted. The clock was ticking, but neither wanted to face that reality just yet. Autumn gave way to winter and then to spring. Trees in the park were painted in shades of red and gold, eventually shedding their leaves in the cold and now sprouting again in brighter colors. Sarah watched the changing scenery from her hospital window, feeling trapped between two worlds. The intensive treatment over the past weeks had left her physically weakened, but her mind remained active and restless, filled with unanswered questions and conflicting emotions. When the door to her room opened, she didn't need to turn around to know who it was. She recognized the hesitant footsteps of Richard Carter. "May I come in?" he asked, though he was already inside. Sarah nodded, still looking out the window. "Emma is in school. Ryan went to pick her up." "I know." Richard came closer and stopped beside her. "I came to talk to you, just the two of us." There was something in his voice, a rare fragility for a man so powerful, that made Sarah finally turn and look at him. Over the past few days, she had studied his face, searching for pieces of herself, of her mother, even of Emma. It was strange seeing parts of her own features in a man who was essentially a stranger. "About what?" she asked, more bluntly than intended. Richard sighed and sat in the chair by the window. "About everything, about Catherine, about you, about all these lost years." Sarah felt that familiar tightness in her chest, anger, sadness, and confusion mixed together in a knot she couldn't untangle. And yet, something in her had changed. Maybe it was the fatigue from the illness, or the realization of her own mortality. But she found herself willing to listen. "All right," she agreed, sitting in the armchair across from him. "I'm listening." Richard seemed unsure where to begin. His hands that had signed million-dollar contracts and built an empire, trembled slightly. "I met your mother at university," he began. "I was studying business administration. She was studying literature. We met in a bookstore off campus. She dropped a stack of books and I helped her pick them up." A gentle smile curved his lips. "She thanked me, then said I'd put all the books back in the wrong order." Sarah couldn't help a small smile. That sounded exactly like her mother, kind but precise. "We fell in love quickly," Richard continued. "Catherine was unlike anyone I'd ever met. Intelligent, independent, full of dreams that had nothing to do with money or status. She wanted to write, travel, change the world with her words." "She never stopped writing," Sarah noted, "even when she got sick." Richard nodded, his eyes shining with restrained emotion. "That doesn't surprise me." He paused, steeling himself for the hardest part. "We were together for 2 years, the best of my life, We planned to marry after graduation, but then your father interfered," Sarah filled in. "Yes, Bradford Carter was a ruthless man. When he found out about Catherine, he made it clear he wouldn't accept our union. At first, I ignored his threats, thinking he'd eventually come around." Richard shook his head, regret etched in every line of his face. "I underestimated how far he would go." "What did he do?" "He threatened Catherine directly, not just with losing job opportunities, which would already be devastating for someone with her dreams, but also threatened her family. Her parents had a small bookstore, barely breaking even. My father hinted he could ruin them completely." Sarah listened in silence, the puzzle pieces of her life slowly fitting together. "When I told Catherine about the threats, she stood firm. She said we'd face it all together, that she wouldn't let my father control our lives." Richard took a deep breath, the pain still fresh. "But I was afraid. Not of losing my inheritance, I'd already accepted that possibility, but of what my father would do to her and her family. He had connections, power, and no scruples about using them. So you chose to leave her." There was no accusation in Sarah's voice, just a statement of fact, yet Richard flinched as if struck. "Yes, I told her we couldn't continue, that I was going to follow my family's path. I lied, said I'd reconsidered our relationship, realized we were too different." He closed his eyes for a moment. "It was the hardest thing I ever did, and the most cowardly." "She must have been devastated," Sarah murmured, thinking of her mother, young and heartbroken. "I was deliberately cruel," Richard confessed. "I thought if she hated me, it would be easier for her to move on. I never imagined she might be pregnant. I never knew about you." Sarah felt a knot tighten in her throat. "When she discovered she was pregnant, you were already gone. She told me she tried to find you once when I was about 2, but you had married Ryan's mother. If I had known..." Richard left the sentence unfinished. "What would you have done?" Sarah challenged. "Would you have defied your father for us?" Richard met her gaze directly. "Yes, for you, I would have. Knowing I had a daughter, that would have changed everything." The silence that followed was heavy with lost possibilities and untraveled paths. Sarah studied the man before her, not the powerful magnate she'd met weeks ago, but just a regretful father, aged by the weight of his choices. "You never tried to find her again?" Sarah asked finally. "After your father no longer had power over you?" "I did," Richard said, "years later when I finally had the nerve to stand up to him, when I had my own money and position. But Catherine had moved away, changed her number, disappeared completely. Her parents had sold the bookstore and retired to another town." He paused. "Ryan was 5D, and my marriage was already failing, though it took another decade to officially end. My mom moved us around a lot," Sarah recalled, remembering the nomadic childhood she and her mother had. "She said she liked fresh starts, new horizons, but maybe she was running from memories, or from me," Richard said sadly. "I wouldn't blame her." Sarah stood abruptly, feeling suffocated by the intensity of the conversation. She walked over to the window, seeking space to process everything she was hearing. "I know it's a lot to take in," Richard said softly. "I understand completely if you want nothing to do with me. I lost the right to be your father a long time ago. But I want you to know that even without knowing you existed, there's always been a void in my life. Something was missing. And now I know what it was." Sarah turned to face him, tears shimmering in her eyes. "It's not that simple. I can't just forget the birthdays without a father, the graduations without a father, all the times I needed someone who wasn't there." "I know," he said, voice trembling. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm just asking for a chance to know you now, to be part of your life and Emma's life, in whatever way you'll let me." Sarah studied his face, searching for signs of manipulation or falsehood. All she saw was sincerity, regret, and a fragile hope. "I don't know if I can fully forgive you," she admitted. "I don't know if I'll ever truly see you as my father, but..." She took a deep breath. "I'm willing to try. For Emma. For myself. Maybe even for my mum, who never stopped speaking kindly of you despite everything." The relief on Richard's face was almost tangible. That's more than I deserve. Thank you." In that moment, something subtle changed between them. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a beginning, a small step towards something new. While Sarah and Richard embarked on their tense journey of reconnection, Ryan discovered a new side of himself through his relationship with Emma. The girl, with her direct honesty and boundless curiosity, had won his heart in a way he never thought possible. That afternoon, he picked her up from school as promised. When Emma saw him waiting at the gate, she ran toward him with a smile bright enough to light up the entire street. "Uncle Ryan, you actually came!" The word uncle still sounded odd to Ryan, a reminder of this new reality, yet it also brought an unexpected sense of belonging. "Of course I did," he replied, taking the pink backpack from her shoulders. "I promised, didn't I?" Emma nodded solemnly. "Mum says promises are sacred." "She's right," Ryan agreed, guiding her toward the car. On the drive back to the hospital, Emma talked non-stop about her day at school, about the new friend she'd made, about the drawing she planned to give her mom. Ryan listened intently, fascinated by how she viewed the world, without cynicism or filters, purely curious and joyful. "You really do like my mom, don't you?" Emma suddenly asked, cutting off her own story about the schoolyard. The question caught Ryan by surprise. "Of course I do, she's my sister." Emma studied him with her perceptive gaze, so much like Sarah's. "But you just met her. How can you like someone you just met?" Ryan thought for a moment, choosing his words. "Sometimes you just feel a connection with someone, like you've known them somehow. Then you discover things about them that make you admire them more and more." "Like what?" Emma pressed, genuinely curious. "Well, your mom is incredibly strong. She raised you on her own, looked after you during a really tough illness, and never gave up even when everything seemed impossible." Ryan smiled at the girl. "That makes me admire her a lot." Emma absorbed that in silence for a moment. "You're strong too," she declared. "You're rich, but you're not mean like the rich people in stories." Ryan couldn't help laughing. "Thanks, I guess. I try not to be mean." "Grandpa Richard isn't mean either," Emma continued, moving on to the next topic with a child's ease. "He looks sad sometimes, but he's nice. He gave me a book about stars yesterday." Ryan felt a pang, not exactly jealousy, but a strange melancholy. His father had never been the type to give him books or spend quality time. It was interesting to see Richard trying to be a different kind of grandfather. "Do you like him?" Ryan asked casually. Emma nodded enthusiastically. "He knows lots of cool things, and he said he'd take me to see the stars through a real telescope when Mom gets better." Ryan smiled, infected by the girl's optimism. "I'm sure your mum will love that trip too." When they arrived at the hospital, they found Sarah calmer than in previous days. There was a new serenity on her face, as if some internal storm had finally begun to subside. "We had a good talk," was all she said when Ryan asked about Richard, who had left just before they arrived. In the following days, Ryan watched with interest as the relationship between Sarah and Richard slowly blossomed. It wasn't easy. There were tense moments, muffled arguments, silent tears. But there were also tiny instances of connection. Richard bringing Catherine's favorite books he'd kept all these years, Sarah sharing stories of Emma's childhood, the three of them discussing poetry, a shared passion they'd unexpectedly discovered. For Ryan, it was like watching a delicate dance, full of advances and retreats. He did what he could to support Sarah without pressuring her, respecting her space and time. During chemotherapy, he held her hand, telling silly stories to distract her from the discomfort. On nights she was too tired, he read stories to Emma, making sure the girl's routine wasn't entirely disrupted by her mother's illness. Gradually, a new family dynamic began to emerge. Imperfect, fragile, but genuine. Richard visited daily, bringing his newly acquired medical knowledge and the determination to make up for lost time. Ryan split his schedule between work, now managed mostly through video calls from the hospital, and this new family. And Emma, at the center of it all, acted as a bridge connecting everyone, her innocence and unconditional love breaking down barriers the adults might never have surmounted on their own. One afternoon, while Emma napped on the hospital room sofa, Sarah turned to Ryan with a thoughtful expression. "He really is trying," she said, referring to Richard, who had just left to get them dinner. "Yeah, he is," Ryan agreed. "I've never seen him like this before. So vulnerable, so human." Sarah sighed. "It's hard. Part of me wants to hate him for what he did, leaving my mother, missing all my childhood. But another part," as she paused, "another part understands the impossible circumstances he was in, and I see how he is with Emma, how he's trying with you too." "With me?" Ryan sounded surprised. Sarah offered a soft smile. "Haven't you noticed? He's trying to reconnect with you as well. All those years consumed by building an empire, pushing you to follow in his footsteps. I think he finally realizes what he missed out on." Ryan thought about it. It was true. His father had changed in the past few weeks. Their conversations were more genuine, less business-oriented, more focused on feelings and desires. "I think you're right," he admitted. "This situation changed all of us. Hopefully for the better," Sarah replied, looking fondly at Emma, who slept peacefully. "Definitely for the better," Ryan said, following her gaze. The road ahead would still be difficult. Sarah's health, the growing bond with Richard, the wounds of the past needing time to heal, all were significant challenges. But in that moment, sitting together in the comfortable silence of the hospital room, watching Emma's peaceful sleep, there was a palpable sense of hope. Bonds had been broken in the past, but new connections were being forged, one piece at a time, day by day. And for the first time, Ryan felt the walls he'd built around his heart start to crumble, replaced by something far more valuable, the love of a family he never knew he needed until he found it. The morning started like any other in the new apartment Ryan had rented for Sarah and Emma close to the hospital. The last few weeks had brought an almost normal routine to this newly formed little family. Sarah was responding well to treatment, Emma was attending a new school where she quickly made friends, and Ryan was balancing work and family in a way he never thought possible. Even Richard visited regularly, slowly building a relationship with the daughter and granddaughter he'd only just discovered. On that Tuesday morning, Emma had just left for school with Richard, who insisted on taking her personally. Ryan was in the makeshift office in the living room, participating in a video conference, when he heard a noise coming from Sarah's room. Something about the sound, a dull thud followed by silence, triggered an alarm in his mind. He ended the meeting abruptly and ran to the bedroom. Sarah was lying on the bathroom floor, pale as a sheet, a thin line of blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "Sarah!" Ryan dropped to his knees beside her, heart pounding. She was conscious, but barely, her eyes struggling to focus. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No," she tried to protest, but her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm fine, just dizzy." But Ryan already had his phone at his ear, explaining the situation with the forced calm of someone used to crises in business, even as his personal world threatened to collapse. While waiting for the ambulance, he carried Sarah back to her bed, alarmed by how light she felt, as though the illness was eating her away from the inside. "Hang on," he murmured, holding her cold hand. "You'll be all right." Sarah tried to smile, but it became a grimace of pain. "Emma?" she managed to say. "Your father is with her. I'll let them know as soon as we get to the hospital. Don't worry." The ambulance arrived within minutes, one of the perks of living in a nice neighborhood, Ryan thought bitterly, recalling how in Sarah's old apartment they might have waited 3 times as long. The paramedics worked quickly, stabilizing Sarah and moving her onto a stretcher. "I'm coming with her," Ryan insisted, leaving no room for argument. During the ride, while the paramedics monitored Sarah's vital signs, Ryan texted Richard to explain the situation briefly, asking him to keep Emma at school for now. There was no point in scaring her yet. Then he called Dr. Morris and Sarah's oncologist. "I'll be waiting for you," the doctor assured him, worry evident in his voice. "I'm gathering the team." At the hospital, everything blurred. Sarah was rushed for tests, while Ryan was directed to a private waiting room. Alone in the oppressive silence, he felt for the first time the full weight of the situation. His sister, this woman he barely knew a few months ago but who had become so important, could be dying at this very moment. An hour later, Richard arrived, his face etched with concern. I left Emma with the school counselor, told her Sarah felt unwell and we had to come here. I didn't want to frighten her. Ryan nodded, grateful for his father's sensitivity. Who would have guessed the ruthless Richard Carter could show such kindness? Any news? Richard asked, sinking heavily into the chair beside Ryan. Nothing yet. They're running tests. Richard ran a hand over his face, seeming suddenly much older than his 65 years. This can't be happening, not now. Not when I've finally found her. Ryan looked at his father with a mix of compassion and surprise. He had never seen him so shaken, so human. The doctors here are the best. She's in good hands. You don't understand, Richard said, voice thick with emotion. I lost everything with Catherine, the chance to love her, to build a life with her. And now, when I finally find our daughter, when I finally have a chance to know her, he couldn't finish the sentence, words catching in his throat. Ryan didn't know what to say. In business, he always had the right words, the perfect strategy, but facing his father's raw pain, he felt helpless. Mr. Carter, Mr. Ryan. Dr. Morris's voice interrupted. Both men stood up at once. How is she? They asked almost in unison. The doctor signaled for them to sit down again. His serious expression didn't bode well. Sarah's condition has deteriorated significantly. The cancer has spread faster than we predicted, and her liver is severely compromised. Richard paled. But she was responding to treatment. In the last consultations, you said there was improvement. There was initial positive response, yes, but that's common in certain cancers. Temporary improvement followed by an aggressive relapse. The doctor took a deep breath. I'm sorry, but the current treatment won't be enough. It's become more urgent than we anticipated. What does that mean? Ryan asked, a chill spreading through him. It means we need to consider a liver transplant immediately, not as a future plan, but as a current necessity. The word hovered among them like a sentence. Transplant. So simple to say, so complex to achieve. What are the chances? Richard asked, trying to keep his voice controlled, though his trembling hands betrayed his agitation. With a compatible donor and a successful surgery, the odds are good. Sarah is young and, despite the illness, her other organs are functioning well. The doctor paused. The problem is finding a donor in time. How much time do we have? Ryan's question was direct, clinical. Weeks, not months, the doctor replied honestly. I've already put her on the national waiting list, but I must be frank. Wait times are long, even in urgent cases. What about a living donor? Ryan asked, the decision already forming in his mind. I know people can donate part of their liver. Dr. Morris nodded. Yes, that's an option. The liver has a remarkable capacity to regenerate. Both donor and recipient can have a functional organ after the procedure. I want to be tested, Ryan declared without hesitation. Right now. Richard looked at his son with a mix of pride and fear. Ryan, you need to think carefully. This is a serious surgery with real risks. There's nothing to think about. Ryan's voice was firm, surprising even himself. She's my sister. I want to be tested too, Richard insisted, turning to the doctor. Immediately. Dr. Morris shook his head sadly. I'm afraid your age and cardiac history disqualify you as a donor, Mr. Carter. The risks would be too high. Richard seemed to deflate, as though something vital had been drained from him. The sense of powerlessness, alien to his life of privilege, consumed him. He couldn't use his money, power, or influence to save the daughter he had only just found. It devastated him. May I see her? He asked the doctor, his voice barely audible. She's sedated now, but yes, you can see her briefly. In the meantime, I'll initiate the protocols for Mr. Ryan's compatibility tests. Sarah was hooked up to machines that monitored every aspect of her condition. Tubes and wires seemed to engulf her frail figure against the stark white hospital sheets. Richard stayed by her side, holding her limp hand, while Ryan was taken away for his donor evaluation. Blood tests, imaging exams, psychological assessments, all were done urgently. Because it was an emergency with a direct donor, the results were expedited. Richard barely left Sarah's side during this time. He talked to her even as she slept, telling stories about Catherine, about how they met, about the dreams they once shared. It was as though he was trying to make up for decades of silence in just a few hours, fearing he might never have another chance. Emma arrived at the hospital late that afternoon, brought by the school's social worker. With her usual perceptiveness, the little girl immediately sensed something was very wrong. "Is Mommy going to die?" she asked Richard directly, her wide eyes locked on his, demanding honesty. Richard felt the weight of the question like a physical blow. How do you answer a child about her gravely ill mother? "Your mom is very sick," he finally said, opting for a gentle truth. "The doctors are doing everything they can to help her." Emma absorbed this in silence, glancing at her mother's motionless form. "She looks tired." "She is," Richard agreed softly. "She's fighting really hard, and that makes her tired. How can I help?" The simple question from someone so young nearly broke Richard's composure. "You're already helping, sweetheart. Being here, loving your mom, that gives her strength." Emma nodded solemnly, as if accepting a great responsibility. She climbed onto a chair beside the bed and started drawing a card for Sarah with the supplies the social worker had provided. That was the scene Ryan found when he returned hours later, exhausted but with renewed determination shining in his eyes. "Can we talk outside?" he asked Richard, indicating the hallway. Once out of Emma's earshot, Ryan got straight to the point. "I'm compatible. The doctors say I'm an ideal donor." Richard closed his eyes for a moment, taking in the news. It was both a relief and a new worry. A relief that Sarah had a chance, a worry about the risks his son would face. "Are you sure about this, Ryan? This is major surgery. Recovery is long." "There are risks." "I've never been more sure of anything," Ryan said, surprising even himself. "My whole life has been about accumulating wealth, power, success. For what? To come home to an empty house, shallow relationships, a purposeless existence. Finding Sarah and Emma was like finding a part of myself I never knew was missing. I'm not losing them now. Not when I can do something." Richard studied his son with new eyes. The man before him was no longer the cold, calculating executive he'd shaped. He was someone deeper, more human, someone willing to take a risk Richard himself, with all his resources, could not. "I'm proud of you," was all he said. Simple words, rarely spoken, but sincere. Ryan looked momentarily surprised, then nodded in acknowledgement. "Dr. Morris wants to talk to Sarah when she wakes up. The surgery needs to happen in the next few days, if she agrees." "If she agrees? You think she might refuse?" "You don't know Sarah like I've come to know her these past weeks," Ryan said with a small smile. "She's incredibly stubborn and independent. She hates the idea of anyone risking themselves for her. Convincing her won't be easy." Richard shook his head, a mix of frustration and admiration on his face. Just like her mother. Sarah woke up in the early evening, confused and disoriented. Seeing Emma asleep in a makeshift chairbed and Richard beside her brought reality flooding back. "What happened?" she asked, her voice raspy. Richard leaned in, offering her a straw to sip some water. "You collapsed at home. Ryan found you and called an ambulance." Sarah tried to sit up, but pain forced her back down. "I feel like I got hit by a truck." "Stay still," Richard instructed gently. "I'll call the doctor." Dr. Morris arrived minutes later, accompanied by Ryan. Calmly, he explained what had happened, the rapid progression of her disease, the failure of the current treatment, the urgent need for a transplant. Sarah listened in silence, her face reflecting first shock, then fear, and finally a sad resolve. "How long?" she asked simply. "Without the transplant?" "Weeks, maybe a month or two with intense palliative care." Sarah closed her eyes, absorbing the blow. When she opened them again, determination sparked. "And the waiting list. You're already on it, but waiting times..." The doctor trailed off. "Are longer than I have," Sarah concluded, reading between the lines. She glanced at Emma, still asleep and blissfully unaware. "So that's it. I need to make arrangements for her, make sure she'll be okay." "There is another option," Ryan interrupted, unable to hold back any longer. "A living donor." Sarah frowned for a moment before realization hit. "No, absolutely not." "I'm compatible, Sarah," Ryan insisted. "The tests are done. I'm an ideal donor. I'm not letting you undergo a dangerous surgery for me. We've known each other only a few months. And you're my sister, Ryan responded simply. Family. Sarah shook her head firmly. It's insane. The risks are acceptable, Dr. Morris interjected. Mr. Ryan is young, healthy, and while this is a serious procedure, success rates are high in cases like this. See, Ryan said, even the doctor agrees. This is a good option, Sarah. The best option. Sarah looked from Ryan to Richard, then to the doctor, and finally to Emma. The thought of leaving her daughter was unbearable. But the idea of putting Ryan at risk, I need time to think, she said at last. We don't have much time, the doctor reminded her gently. The longer we wait, the weaker you become and the higher the surgical risks. Richard, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Sarah, I know we barely know each other, and I have no right to ask anything of you, but as your father, I'm begging you to consider this. I can't lose you now that I've finally found you. The emotion in his voice, this man who was always so controlled, startled her. Sarah saw unshed tears in his eyes, a vulnerability she never imagined he had. All of you are willing to do so much for me, she murmured, still incredulous. Because you're worth it, Ryan said simply. Because you matter. At that moment, Emma stirred, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Seeing Sarah awake, her face lit up. Mommy, are you better? Sarah smiled at her daughter, heart heavy. I'm tired, love, but better now that I see you. Emma climbed into the bed carefully, just like she did at home when they watched movies together. I made a drawing to make you happy, she announced, showing a colorful card. Sarah looked at the drawing, 5 stick figures under a bright sun. Who are they, sweetheart? It's our family, Emma explained, pointing to each figure. You, me, Uncle Ryan, Grandpa Richard, and Grandma in heaven. The lump in Sarah's throat almost stopped her breathing. This was her family now, imperfect, newly formed but real, and they were all here, fighting for her, wanting her in their lives. She glanced at Ryan, who watched her with cautious hope in his eyes. If I agree, what are the real chances? For both of us. With a compatible donor like Ryan, success rates are excellent, Dr. Morris said honestly. Above 85% for both. The liver is remarkable in its capacity to regenerate. In a year, both donor and recipient typically have fully functional organs. Sarah took a deep breath, her decision forming slowly. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Emma, about Ryan, about Richard, about this strange, improbable family fate had given her. I guess you win this one, brother, she finally said with a small smile at Ryan, but on one condition. Anything, he responded immediately. If at any point the doctors say the risk to you increases, you back out. Promise me. Ryan hesitated but nodded. I promise, but it won't come to that. Dr. Morris gave a discreet smile. Then I'll make arrangements for tomorrow. In the meantime, Sarah needs rest. As the doctor left, Emma looked curiously from one adult to another. What's happening tomorrow? Sarah exchanged glances with Ryan, unsure how to explain. It was Richard who spoke. Tomorrow, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed, your Uncle Ryan is going to do something very special and brave to help your mom get better. Emma considered this seriously. Like a superhero? Ryan chuckled, tension easing slightly. Not exactly, but that's a nice way to think about it. Are you going to be okay, Mom? Emma asked, eyes large and hopeful. Sarah pulled her daughter closer, kissing the top of her head. I'll do my very best, my love. Uncle Ryan and I are going to fight hard so we both come out okay. Richard watched the scene with barely contained emotion. In all his life, he'd never imagined being in this position. Terrified for the life of a daughter he never knew, admiring a son he had underestimated, feeling both powerful because of his resources and helpless in the face of illness. We'll get through this, he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. All of us together. Ryan caught his father's eye, seeing not the ruthless businessman but just a frightened man trying to be strong for his family. He nodded in silent solidarity, while Emma excitedly recounted her school day to Sarah as if nothing were amiss. Ryan quietly stepped out into the hallway, needing a moment alone. He leaned against the wall, breathing deeply. Fear, something he rarely admitted feeling, finally caught up with him. Tomorrow he would undergo a serious operation with real risks. He could die. Sarah could die. This little family he had only begun to discover could shatter before it truly formed. But then he remembered Emma's drawing, 5 figures under a bright sun. A family. His family. And he knew, with a certainty that transcended fear, that he would do anything to protect them. He returned to the room with renewed determination. Tomorrow would only be the beginning of a long road they would travel together. A journey he was determined would have the ending Emma had drawn, all of them together, under the shining sun, finally complete as a family. The morning of the transplant arrived with a clear, sunny sky, in stark contrast to the tension filling the hospital corridors. Since dawn, the medical team had been making final preparations for the complex procedure that could save Sarah's life. Ryan had arrived during the early hours, determined not to show any hesitation that might alarm his sister or niece. Richard brought Emma at 7 o'clock, as arranged. The little girl clung to her grandfather's hand, her wide eyes absorbing every movement in the busy hallways. Though the adults had tried to explain the procedure in the simplest possible terms, she grasped the seriousness of the situation in ways that surprised them all. "Did you sleep well?" Sarah asked when they entered her room, attempting a light and normal tone despite the IV in her arm and the monitors beside her. "Emma insisted on wearing something special to come see you before the surgery," Richard explained with a gentle smile. "She said she needed to look pretty for the important occasion." Sarah opened her arms to her daughter, who climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of the tubes and wires. "You look beautiful, my love," Sarah whispered, adjusting the red bow headband Emma wore. "And very brave." Emma only nodded, her eyes studying her mother's face as if memorizing every detail. Ryan, who had been checking some documents with the nurse, came over with a forcedly casual grin. "Everything's set. In a few hours, we'll be complaining together about hospital food." "As if you'd complain about anything," Sarah teased weakly. "You'll probably have your personal chef bring something gourmet to your private hospital suite." "Hey, that's actually a great idea. Why didn't I think of that sooner?" Ryan pretended to be surprised, drawing smiles from everyone, even Emma. Dr. Morris entered the room, accompanied by 2 members of the surgical team. "Good morning, everyone. It's time for us to start the preliminary procedures." Emma's expression turned serious immediately. She clung to her mother tighter, as if she could prevent them from taking her away. "Emma, sweetheart," Sarah said gently, "remember what we talked about. Mommy and Uncle Ryan are having a special operation today. Uncle Ryan is giving Mommy part of his liver so I can get healthy and strong again." Emma looked at Ryan, who sat on the edge of the bed. "And like I promised, I'll be back soon," he added, lightly tapping the girl's nose with his finger. "We still have that stargazing trip to plan for when your mom gets better, right?" Emma nodded, though reluctantly. "While we wait, you and I will do something special," Richard interjected, extending his hand to his granddaughter. "We'll shop for recovery presents for both of them. How does that sound?" The little girl looked at her grandfather, then at her mom, and finally at Ryan. "Promise you'll come back?" she asked Ryan directly, with the grave seriousness only a child can muster in crucial moments. "I promise," Ryan said, hooking his pinky finger. It was a sacred oath he'd learned from Emma in the last few weeks. She hooked her pinky with his, then did the same with Sarah's. "You both have to come back." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. "We will, my love. Now give Mommy a kiss and go with Grandpa. We'll be together again before you know it." With reluctance, Emma climbed down from the bed and took Richard's hand. Before leaving, she glanced back one last time at Sarah and Ryan. There was a strange maturity in her eyes, as though she understood far more than the adults suspected. Preparations continued as planned. Sarah was medicated and prepped for surgery, while Ryan underwent his own pre-op in another room. A nurse was updating the last details on the chart when the door to Sarah's room opened again. Expecting to see the doctor, Sarah was surprised to see a pediatric nurse with a worried expression. "Miss Miller, sorry to bother you, but we have a situation." She hesitated, glancing nervously at the soon-to-be surgical patient. "What is it?" asked the nurse in charge of Sarah. It's about Ms. Miller's daughter, the newcomer explained quietly. Emma, she disappeared. What do you mean, disappeared? Sarah immediately tried to sit up, causing alarms to beep. And what do you mean she's gone? Mr. Carter left her in the children's playroom while he went to buy her a hot chocolate. He was gone less than 5 minutes, and when he returned, she wasn't there. We've been searching all over the floor, but I thought you should know. Panic seized Sarah. My daughter is lost in this huge hospital, and you're telling me just now. Cancel the surgery, we need to find her. The nurse in charge tried to calm her. Sarah, please, try to stay calm. I'm sure they'll find her quickly. It's not possible for a child to leave the hospital unnoticed. You don't know Emma, Sarah replied, trying to remove the sensors attached to her. She's small and smart. If she doesn't want to be found, she won't be. I need to go look for her. The pediatric nurse hurried off to inform the search teams, while the other tried to keep Sarah from standing. At that moment, Ryan entered the room, already dressed in a hospital gown. What's going on? I heard raised voices. Emma disappeared, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Ryan, she vanished. She was with your father and she's gone. Ryan went pale but quickly regained composure. I'll find her, he declared firmly. Sarah, you have to stay calm. You can't get agitated like this before surgery. Surgery? You think I'm going into surgery while my daughter is missing? Sarah, listen, Ryan said, grasping her hands. Emma's somewhere in this hospital. They'll find her, I promise, but you need to trust me and stay here, ready for the procedure. If we miss this window... He didn't need to finish. They both knew delaying the surgery could worsen her already critical condition. The transplant was urgent. I'll find her, Ryan repeated, looking into his sister's eyes. Trust me. Sarah, exhausted and out of options, nodded reluctantly. You have 20 minutes. After that, surgery or not, I'm going to look for my daughter. Ryan rushed out, finding Richard in the hallway, distraught and guilt-ridden. I went to get her hot chocolate. I was gone less than 5 minutes, he explained, voice trembling. When I came back... It doesn't matter now, Ryan cut him off. We have to find her quickly. You've spent time with her over the last few weeks. Where would she go if she was scared or upset? Richard thought hard. She's been asking a lot of questions about God recently. She asked if Grandma is in heaven, if God takes care of sick people. The chapel, Ryan concluded instantly. She might have gone to the hospital chapel. Without wasting time, they headed for the elevator. The chapel was on the ground floor, near the main entrance, a peaceful spot many families sought during difficult times. They arrived to find the door slightly ajar, the space lit by the soft glow of votive candles. Ryan motioned for Richard to wait at the entrance and walked in quietly, down the center aisle. He saw no one on the benches, so he kept looking, guided by an instinct he couldn't explain. That's when he spotted a little red shoe peeking out from under the last pew in the darkest part of the chapel. He approached slowly so as not to startle her. Emma, he called gently, kneeling by the pew. Under the bench, curled into a tight ball, was Emma. Tears stained her face, and she clutched a small teddy bear Richard had given her the week before. Hey, everyone's looking for you, Ryan said softly, keeping his voice calm and kind. Emma didn't reply, just looked at him with tearful eyes. Can I sit with you? He asked. After a moment of hesitation, she gave a small nod. Ryan sat on the floor beside the pew, respecting the space she'd carved out for herself. Your mom's worried, he commented after a few moments of silence. I know, Emma whispered, barely audible. Want to tell me why you're hiding here? Emma hugged her teddy bear tighter. I asked a nurse if the surgery was dangerous. Ryan understood immediately. And what did she say? She said all surgeries have risks, Emma replied, new tears threatening to spill. If you give your liver to my mom, are you going to die? The direct, fear-filled question hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. He opened his arms, and Emma finally emerged from her hiding place, throwing herself into his chest, sobbing freely now. No, little one, I'm not going to die, he reassured her, holding her close. People have 2 parts of their liver, you know? We only need 1 part to live well. So I can give your mom a peace of mind and still be just fine. Promise, she sobbed into his shirt, I promise, I'll be fine, and your mom will be fine too. That's why we're doing it." Emma pulled back a little, searching his eyes for the truth children instinctively know how to sense. "Okay, then I'll let you help Mommy," she finally declared, as though her permission were the missing piece. Ryan smiled, feeling a lump in his throat. "Thank you, Emma. That means a lot to me." Richard appeared at the chapel door, relief spreading across his face when he saw Emma in Ryan's arms. He quickly sent a message to the hospital staff, letting them know the girl was safe. "Shall we head back?" Ryan suggested gently. "Your mum's waiting to see you before the surgery." Emma nodded, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her coat. She clung to Ryan's hand on the walk back, as if afraid he might vanish. Sarah's relief upon seeing Emma was indescribable. The medical team, understanding the circumstances, allowed a few extra minutes for the family before beginning final preparations. "I'm sorry I disappeared, Mummy," Emma murmured, curled beside Sarah on the narrow hospital bed. "I was scared." "It's okay to be scared, my love," Sarah replied, stroking her daughter's hair. "I am too. But do you know what helps me be brave? Thinking of you, of all the things I still want to do with you. And now I also have Uncle Ryan and Grandpa Richard." Emma looked over at Ryan, standing near the bed. "Are you really going to be okay after the surgery?" "I'll be fine," he assured her. "Maybe a little tired for a few days, but soon enough I'll be ready to take you to the amusement park, like I promised." Dr. Morris entered, signaling it was time. Richard lifted Emma into his arms, and she said goodbye to her mother and uncle with tearful kisses, but no more protests. "We'll be waiting for you," Richard promised, emotion evident in his normally controlled voice. Sarah's and Ryan's gurneys were wheeled off simultaneously to adjacent operating rooms. In the final moments before anesthesia took effect, they caught each other's gaze. A silent communication passing between siblings fate had separated and reunited in the most unlikely ways. That the surgery took 7 hours. Richard and Emma waited in a private area, surrounded by toys, books, and tablets he had brought to distract her. But the girl was unusually quiet, drawing or simply gazing out the window, as though she could see beyond the horizon. "What are you thinking about, dear?" Richard asked after hours of contemplative silence. Emma lifted her eyes from the drawing. "I'm thinking about how Uncle Ryan gave Mommy a piece of himself. It's like a superpower, isn't it? Giving a piece of yourself to someone else." Richard felt deeply moved. "Yes, it's a kind of superpower. A very special one. Would you give a piece of yourself to Mommy if you could?" The innocent question struck Richard like an arrow. "Yes, Emma. I would give everything I have for your mom, if I could." Emma seemed satisfied with his answer and returned to her drawing, a colorful picture of 4 people holding hands under a big yellow sun. Finally, near early evening, Dr. Morris appeared at the door with a tired but genuine smile. "The surgery was successful," he announced. "Both Sarah and Ryan are stable and responding well. The transplanted liver segment is already functioning, which is an excellent sign." Richard let out a deep breath he'd been holding, as though all his accumulated anxieties were released at once. Emma, grasping that the news was good, smiled and drew red hearts around the figures in her picture. "When can we see them?" Richard asked, voice tight with emotion. "Ryan will be in recovery for a few hours. Sarah will remain in the ICU tonight for close monitoring, but if all goes well, you can have brief visits tomorrow. Emma can see Ryan briefly in a few hours if he's awake." The wait continued, but now with an entirely different atmosphere, relief and hope replacing the fear and anxiety that had filled the day. When they were finally allowed to see Ryan, who was still groggy from anesthesia, Emma approached his bed cautiously. Her eyes scanned the medical equipment and tubes before settling on his pale but smiling face. "You didn't die," she declared with the unvarnished honesty of a child. "I promised I wouldn't. Remember," Ryan answered in a hoarse whisper. Emma smiled for the first time that day, a radiant smile that seemed to brighten the entire room. "And Mommy won't die either." "No," Richard assured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She's going to get better every day now." In the weeks that followed, Sarah's and Ryan's recoveries went as expected. Ryan, younger and without underlying disease, bounced back faster. though he had to adjust to new temporary limitations. Sarah, on the other hand, faced minor complications, but each day brought small victories the entire family celebrated. During this period, Richard Carter barely left the hospital. His constant presence surprised not only the medical staff, accustomed to seeing magnates delegate even family care, but also Ryan, who had never seen his father so dedicated to anything beyond business. It was during one of these long nights of vigilance that Richard made a decision that would definitively change the course of this newly formed family. As he watched Sarah sleep peacefully after a particularly tough day, he silently vowed to do everything in his power to ensure she and Emma never again faced hardship or uncertainty. When Sarah was finally discharged a month after the surgery, Richard surprised everyone with his announcement. He had purchased a spacious, comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood near excellent schools and parks. Fully furnished and adapted for Sarah's ongoing recovery, the property was more than just a lavish gift. It was a permanent commitment. "I can't change the past," he said as he showed the house to Sarah and Emma for the first time. "I can't reclaim the years we lost. But I can make sure your future and Emma's is different, that you'll have the support you always deserved." Sarah, still physically weak from the surgery but stronger inside, was initially hesitant to accept. Her hard-won independence made her wary of such grand gestures. "It's not just a gift," Richard explained, noticing her resistance. "It's an acknowledgement of my role and my responsibility. It's the least I can do after all these years." It was, in truth, much more than that. It was his way of saying he finally understood what true family meant, something all his wealth had never taught him before. Ryan, watching as he helped Emma explore her new bedroom, stocked with carefully chosen toys and books, felt a strange sense of wholeness. The chain of events triggered by his impulsive purchase of an old music box had forever changed his life in ways he couldn't have imagined. At that moment, Emma tugged on his hand, leading him to the bedroom window. "Look, Uncle Ryan." "You can see the stars from here," Ryan smiled, observing the night sky just starting to sparkle with light. "Yes, we can. And you know what? As soon as we're both fully recovered, we'll go on that stargazing trip I promised. With Mom and Grandpa too. With the whole family," he confirmed, feeling for the first time that the word family truly encompassed his life. Autumn turned to winter, then winter gave way to spring. The trees around Sarah and Emma's new home were now in full bloom, and the garden Richard had personally insisted on designing was blossoming. 6 months had passed since the surgery that changed their lives, and today was a special day. "Are you sure you didn't forget anything?" Sarah asked, triple-checking the large picnic basket. "I'm sure," Ryan replied, feigning offense. "I'm perfectly capable of organizing a picnic, you know." Sarah raised a skeptical eyebrow. "The same man who tried to make pasta last week and nearly burned down my kitchen." "A minor setback," Ryan defended, struggling to maintain a serious face before bursting into laughter with his sister. The past months of living together had deepened their bond in a way neither could have predicted. Shared physical therapy sessions, medical follow-ups, and nights spent watching old movies to distract from their healing, all layered into a relationship far beyond mere blood ties. "Emma's taking a while," Sarah noted, checking the clock. "Richard said he'd bring her at 3. They're probably out buying more presents for her," Ryan grinned. "He's determined to be the most indulgent grandfather in history." Sarah shook her head, but without real disapproval. Her relationship with Richard still had difficult moments, but her illness and recovery had broken down many barriers. His genuine effort to be present, to learn how to be not just a provider but a steady presence in their lives, had begun to heal old wounds. "I can't blame him," she said softly. "He's trying to make up for lost time." "And doing a good job," Ryan said, moving to the window. He could see Richard's car pulling into the driveway. "They're here." Emma jumped out of the car before Richard had fully parked. She wore a floral dress and carried a carefully wrapped package. "Mom!" "Uncle Ryan," she called, rushing through the open door Ryan held. "We got a surprise for the picnic." Sarah hugged her daughter, feeling that wave of gratitude that had never left her since the surgery. Each day with Emma was a gift she sometimes couldn't believe she deserved. "What surprise is that, my love?" Emma exchanged conspiratorial glances with Richard, who entered carrying a few shopping bags. "Grandpa, can I show them now?" "Of course, sweetheart," he replied indulgently. "You picked it out yourself." The girl unwrapped the package with care, revealing an instant camera. "Grandpa said we can take pictures today to make a family album. Because now we have a real family to put in it." Sarah felt a knot in her throat. The simplicity with which Emma viewed the world, this childlike ability to accept changes and find the best in them, never ceased to move her. Ryan knelt beside his niece. "That's an awesome idea, Emma. We'll get to keep memories from this special day." Richard observed the scene with an expression that mixed joy and lingering regret. These simple, everyday moments, filled with affection, were exactly what he had missed in decades spent solely focused on building his financial empire. "So," he asked, trying to mask the emotion in his voice, "are we all set for the picnic?" "Almost," Ryan said, exchanging a meaningful glance with Sarah. "There's just one thing I need to grab first." He headed to the small home office he barely used now, splitting his time more evenly between work and family. From a locked drawer, he took out a carefully wrapped object in soft cloth. When he returned to the living room, everyone was curious. Even Richard appeared intrigued. "What's that?" Emma asked, forever the first to voice her curiosity. Ryan smiled, peeling back the cloth to reveal the music box, the same one Emma had sold months earlier, the object that set everything in motion. "Remember this?" he asked gently. Emma's eyes went wide. "Mom's music box." She glanced at Sarah, suddenly worried. "I'm sorry I sold it, Mom. I just wanted to help." Sarah hugged her daughter. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. If you hadn't sold that box, we never would have found Uncle Ryan or Grandpa Richard. It was the best thing you could have done." Richard stepped closer, gazing at the item with a complex expression. "I never imagined I'd see this again," he whispered. "I gave it to Catherine so long ago. I thought it'd be fitting to bring it today," Ryan explained, "for our first picnic as a complete family, to remind us how it all began." Carefully, he opened the lid. The delicate melody filled the room, carrying with it a sea of memories. The ballerina began to spin, and Emma watched spellbound. "It's so pretty," she whispered. "Your grandmother loved this song," Richard said, tears edging his voice. "It was from an opera we saw on our very first real date. She said the melody was about second chances and destined reunions." "I guess she was right," Sarah remarked softly. They all fell silent for a moment, just listening to the music, each lost in their own thoughts. Emma, with her innate talent for breaking emotional tension at just the right time, finally spoke. "Can we take the box to the picnic? I want to take a picture of it with all of us." Ryan nodded, carefully wrapping the box again. "Of course we can. In fact, I have a surprise for you related to this box, but I'll tell you during the picnic." Emma could hardly contain her excitement as she helped pack the least fragile items into the car. They were heading to a park only 10 minutes away, a quiet spot by a small lake with lots of tall trees. It was special to Sarah, who used to bring Emma there on rare days off, back when she worked 2 jobs to support them. The day was perfect. Blue skies, mild temperatures, a light breeze occasionally rustling the leaves. They found an ideal spot under an ancient oak tree, with a view of the lake. To everyone's surprise, Richard displayed newly found practical skills, spreading out the picnic blanket and organizing the food. After eating and sharing some laughter, Ryan finally retrieved the music box once more. "Emma," he began with a solemn tone that immediately grabbed her attention. "This music box is very special, as you know. It was the beginning of everything for us." Emma nodded, her face serious. "It belonged to your grandmother, then to your mom, and now—" He paused dramatically. "I think it should belong to you." Emma's eyes widened in genuine surprise. "For me? Really?" "Really," Ryan confirmed, placing the box in her small hands. "But there's one condition." Emma looked at him, waiting. "That you promise to keep it safe and never forget the story it represents, the story of our family." "I promise," Emma said with all the seriousness a 6-year-old could muster. She held the box against her chest as though it were the greatest treasure in the world. Sarah watched the scene with tears in her eyes. The journey of the past few months, from illness to recovery, from loneliness to belonging, seemed to culminate in this simple but deeply meaningful moment. "Let's take our first photo, then," Richard suggested, picking up the camera he had bought for Emma. To officially start the family album, they gathered under the oak tree, Sarah and Emma in the middle, Ryan and Richard on either side. Emma held the music box proudly open, its gentle tune mixing with the natural sounds around them. "On 3, Richard called, setting the camera's timer before hurrying to join the group. 1, 2, 3. The flash went off, capturing that moment forever. 4 people united not just by blood, but by a shared journey of pain, healing, and rediscovery. As the photo slowly developed in Emma's hands, Ryan looked at the unlikely family fate had given him. Sarah, his sister, now gradually regaining color and vitality after months of transplant recovery. Emma, his niece, whose indomitable spirit and unconditional love had touched his heart in ways he never imagined. And Richard, his father, a man transformed by regret and the second chance to fulfill a paternal role he had once neglected. For the first time in his adult life, Ryan felt truly complete. The emptiness he had carried with him, even amid financial and professional success, was finally filled. Not by material things or corporate achievements, but by Emma's laughter, his deep conversations with Sarah, even his reconciliatory moments with Richard. The music box kept playing its gentle melody, cradling that perfect moment. Emma carefully set it on the picnic blanket and picked up the newly developed photo, studying it intently. "It's us," she said with the profound simplicity of childhood. "Our family." Those words, so simple, so direct, struck a chord in every person there. Our family, a concept each of them had experienced in different, often incomplete ways throughout life. Now, at last, they stood together, united not just by Carter blood but by conscious choices to remain together, despite old scars. Final message: we don't always know where destiny will lead us, but small gestures can reveal great connections. Emma sold her music box to save her mother, yet in the end it brought her family back together. And Ryan, a billionaire accustomed to solitude, found something money could never buy: love, belonging, and redemption. He gave his sister not just part of his liver, but a new chance at life. Even more, he discovered the true meaning of family. Sometimes what we spend our whole lives searching for is already within reach, simply waiting for the right moment to be revealed. For the Carters, that moment came through an old music box, an object that seemed ordinary, but was filled with stories and connections that transcended time. The melody Catherine and Richard once listened to decades ago now serenaded a new generation, marking a fresh chapter in this family's story. And as the music played softly that spring afternoon, they all shared the same silent certainty. No matter what challenges the future held, they would face them together as the family destiny always intended them to be.